Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Afterfove. And Afterfove asked me to speak to the subject of the Venus of Willendorf. And the Venus of Willendorf is a very famous statuette showing what is widely believed to be a goddess, and dating back to between 28,000 and 30,000 years past, according to most estimates. And the Venus of Willendorf shows a female figure, very heavy, possibly pregnant, having no face, and not very tall. It's only about yay tall. And what's remarkable about the Venus of Willendorf is not necessarily the features of this one statue, but the fact that it's part of a much larger class of statuary, generally called Venuses, who are found throughout prehistory in Europe, and you find them all the way from England to Siberia, all the way down to the Mediterranean, and you find them from as far back as 30,000 years down to as little as 5,000 years or less in some places, which shows a remarkable continuity for a single image. And of course there's much controversy about exactly what they portray. In the pagan world we generally think it represents the mother goddess, but there are people who would disagree with that. But it certainly represents a goddess of some sort. And one of the reasons that I think that this is pretty much an inescapable conclusion is the island of Malta, which has some very ancient temples, which I recommend that you look into if you don't already know about them. But they also feature Venus figurines. These are some of the latest of the Venus figurines, and some of them actually do have faces. They tend to have a garment, whereas the older ones are nude, but they're still very heavy women who appear to be pregnant. And one of them is about 9 feet tall, even though she's missing her head, and was from the middle of the temple, which says to me that this is a goddess, even if the older figures are more ambiguous. And since it's effectively the same figure, I think we can assume that we have been correct in thinking this represents the ancient mother goddess. There is also a similar goddess found in Çatalhöyük, which is one of the world's most ancient cities, and there she's actually shown giving birth. There are also other classes of ancient figurine which we'll see. One of the most famous is the Nile Valley goddess, which is a much more slender goddess whose arms are raised in what is believed to be a devotional position. And you'll often see variations on this figure as well. But the Venus of Willendorf is probably the more famous of these two ancient archetypes, and you see her all over the place. And it is remarkable, again, not merely that this figure exists, but how many of them there were over such a space and so much time, and how similar they are. There are some of these figures that strongly resemble one another. They all follow the same basic look of the large pregnant female. And again, you find them all the way down to the temples of Malta. There's been at least one found in association with Stonehenge, so it's a very widespread cultural icon of the past. And so again, the idea that this represents the Great Mother in her aspect of bringing forth life is the general assumption, though of course we can only speculate about anything that old and what they may have meant, but it's certainly what it means today, and to people who use this symbol today. So I hope that answers your question and gives you something to think about, and until next time, may you blessed be. Today's vlog is sponsored by the term altar table.
Altar table. The surface on which an altar is set up. An altar table can be most anything from a patch of ground to a marble pedestal, and anything in between. It is generally considered preferable that an altar table be made of wood or stone, or such materials as plaster or terracotta for that matter. Metal is usually not used because of the conductivity of its nature. However, altar pieces are often made of metal, and it is not unusual for an altar table to be decorated with metal ornaments or inlay, or to have a metal frame.